Hi everyone. One of the questions that I get asked a lot in the comments and on Twitter, etc., is why aren't I in the Labour Party? You know, if I'm such a big supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, and I have been for so long, and I support his policies as I do, why aren't I in the Labour Party? To which my reply is always simple. Listen, Tony Blair's in it. He's a war criminal. George Galloway was ejected from it. He told the truth about that war that Tony Blair was a war criminal in. You know, it's there are serious problems there within the Labour Party that if you're rejecting people for telling the truth. I know I'm not the only one with this stance, by the way. Alexis Sale is a big supporter of Jeremy Corbyn in Labour, and he won't go into Labour because he thinks if I go into Labour, hey, they'll suspend me. And you know what? They probably would. Especially after what I've heard today. I mean, Ken Livingstone, from what I can tell, I haven't read into that story totally, but from what I can tell, Ken Livingstone was ejected from the Labour Party for giving a history lesson. Essentially, that's what it comes down to, what it seems to me anyway. So there's obviously a massive, massive problem with, you know, the rules. If truth tellers are ousted and the war criminals are welcomed, especially war criminals that are trying to sabotage the leader of your party and the movement at every single turn. Said the other day, Tony Blair must wake up in the morning and think, how can I screw Jeremy Corbyn today? That's not hyperbolic to say, just look at what he does. You know, he's been against Corbyn the whole time, even before he came to power, because Corbyn represents, you know, an attack on neoliberalism and a threat to neoliberalism, which is what Tony Blair represents. And this is why there's such a, you know, struggle there. But Chris Williamson is an ardent supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. He's probably one of the biggest supporters of Jeremy Corbyn in the Labour Party. Now, I want you to remember that when you're thinking about this story and him being suspended. He is a massive supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. Massive. I can't understate that. He's probably one of his staunchest, closest allies. And he's also probably the loudest voice in Labour, talking about things like the Integrity Initiative, talking about things like the facts with regards to Syria. Not what's written in newspapers, the facts. You know, he talks about Venezuela. I saw an interview with him where he was schooling an absolute stupid woman on BBC the other day, and when I did the video I was astounded because people in the comments said she's a Labour politician. I was like, are you kidding me? She doesn't know what Chris Williamson is telling her.
Chris, is it your position that Nicolas Maduro should stay as president?
Well, whatever my position is, in many ways is irrelevant because
we'd like to know that.
Hold on. Let me just say this though. It's not for us, it's not for the UK, it's not for the United States of America to determine who should be the government in Venezuela. There was an election and Rachel said it was a rigged election, but election observers refute that. Indeed, previous elections in Venezuela have been declared the safest elections anywhere in the world by no less than Jimmy Carter, who has an election observatory, as you probably know. But the issue is about the sanctions in Venezuela that have been imposed by the United States. They're basically crippling the economy there. And there's a UN rapporteur who said that the sanctions are illegal and could amount to crimes against humanity.
What's going on here? How come Labour MPs don't know fact from fiction? You know? And Labour, he schooled her on the BBC. Schooled her. You know, this is somebody who is a massive voice for the Labour Party and a massive, staunch ally of Jeremy Corbyn. So I was doing some stuff this morning. I walked the dog, did some shopping, etc., and came back sort of mid-afternoon. And to my surprise, there were all talks about Chris Williamson being... Everybody was calling for him to be ejected. I saw this clip by James Bryan, and I know some people think James Bryan is an absolute... He's a saint. He's right on everything. He's been right on Brexit all along, they say to me. Really? Has he? Does he have the same... Has he had exactly the same opinions as me for the last 12 months on Brexit? No. Then he hasn't been fucking right all along then, has he? He's been wrong all along, hasn't he? Yes, he has. This is how he framed this. Listen to what he said Chris Williamson has been doing.
Chris Williamson is the Derby MP who's been baiting Jews.
baiting Jews. This is what he alleges Chris Williamson has been doing. This piece of shit here, that's what he alleges. So let's see. Let's see what exactly did Chris Williamson say? What exactly did he do? Well, as it turns out, he had a meeting with members of the Labour Party. I think they call it a CLP, I think they call it. And he showed a video called Witch Hunt, which is made by a black Jewish woman, and it talks about how the Israel lobby is infecting and influencing politics in the Labour Party in Britain and in America. You know, there are other similar documentaries that have come out that we've seen that I reference the lobby all the time. Strangely enough, BBC never heard of it. Never heard of it. Never heard of the, corruption involving Joan Ryan. Never heard of the fact Joan Ryan has been talking about £1 million junkets for her and her friends and pals of, friends of Israel by, Shai Massat. Doesn't talk about any of those. In 2 stories they wrote about her leaving the Labour Party because of allegations of anti-Semitism. Didn't even mention that the lobby actually proved on camera her making up anti-Semitic allegations about another member to get the other member suspended. Making them up out of thin air, never apologising for it, and moving on. She faced no repercussions for that. Lying about another Labour MP and getting them suspended, she faced no repercussions. None. Zero. Zilch. None. She's left the Labour Party. She's still the chairwoman of Labour Friends of Israel. This is what So I'm getting really worked up, aren't I? You know what? If you feel like I do, you will do too. This is what Chris Williamson said in that meeting. This is what he said. This is what they're enraged about. This is what they were calling for his head, even Theresa May.
Party that's done more to stand up to racism is now being demonised as a racist, bigoted party. And I've got to say, I think our party's response has been partly responsible for that. Because in my opinion, I never have, I've got to say, we've backed off far too much. We've given too much ground. We've been too apologetic. For being an anti-racist party. And we've done more to actually address the scourge of anti-Semitism than any other political party. Any other political party.
That's what he's been suspended for. That. Now do you realise, now do you understand why I won't join the Labour Party? Now do you get it? What he said there literally could be a clip from one of my videos. It could literally, you could have took a chunk of my video and gone, bump, there you go, there's Gordon, saying exactly the same thing that Chris Williamson did. He said it 3 days ago. Now, I spotted something in that clip. I spotted something that made me think, oh, I get it. I get it. I see what the foray is. It's not over what Chris Williamson said here. It's actually over something else. So I'm going to play it again and I'm going to stop it after the point where I say, I get it.
Party has done more to stand up to racism is now being demonised as a racist, bigoted party. And I've got to say, I think our party's response has been partly responsible for that. Because in my opinion, I never have, I've got to say, we've backed off far too much. We've given too much ground. We've been too apologetic.
And there you go. Listen. We've backed off too much. We've been too apologetic. We've been given too much ground. Massive round of applause. There is what they're really worrying about, because everything Chris said there was actually right. Everything he said was right. Nothing he said can be construed as anti-Semitic. Nothing. Not a damn thing. If that's anti-Semitic, I'm Chinese. That is the truth. That is the truth. That is a staunch supporter of Corbyn trying to push him in the direction that he needs to go. That's what that is. And he's been suspended. That's why they're attacking him, though, make no bones about it. They're scared. right? Because he's gone and shown this witch hunt video at that CLP meeting or whatever it is. And then he's done that speech and he's got a round of applause. To every Labour member who is watching this right now, the next time you go to a Labour meeting, do yourself a favour, get in touch with Max Blumenthal first and ask him if you can show The Lobby, the 4-part series, The Lobby, in your next 4 Labour meetings. And educate these idiots as to really what's going on with Israel and their influence on politics in this country. Really. It's not anti-Semitism. They are using that as a defence for their crimes against Palestine. And it's fucking obvious to anybody who has got a pair of eyes in their head. First of all, ridiculously, and I can't believe they did this, Chris Williamson, who is there saying, we need to stop apologising in the Labour Party. We apologise too much. And the Labour Party's response is to make Chris Williamson apologise for saying we apologise too much. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you 6 years old? Have you no idea of the optics and how fucking incredibly stupid that looks? Now, obviously, there were calls for him to come out and resign straight after that. There were calls from Watson, obviously, you know, because Watson, hey, he's a snake. He's a backstabber. Watson, from Miliband, from May, and there were many others calling for him to resign because he said the Labour Party apologised too much. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you insane? Are you actively trying to ruin your chances of winning the premiership in this country ever? When the fuck did Jeremy Corbyn become controlled opposition? What happened to this renegade who stood up for what was right? What happened? What happened to the last 40 years of you chaining yourself for fences to do what is right? Now you're capitulating because the people who are wrong they've got the press. All the press are saying mean things. Stand up! If you capitulate to the likes of this, if you capitulate to Watson and the Blairites in your party and the Labour Friends of Israel and Israel's influence in your party, which is a cancer on democracy, if you do not stand up to this now, Corbyn, you are going to be seen as weak. Weak. I am going to see you as weak. People in Leave heartlands around the country, people around the country who can see this anti-Semitic smear of the Labour Party has been blown way out of proportion by the media because they do not want the people to find out really the truth behind Israel. It's been blown out of all proportion, and rather than stand up to it, they're kowtowing to it and apologising where there's no need to apologise. Because what? What? Are you afraid the newspapers are going to smear you about it and write nasty things? Wake the fuck up. They're going to smear you and write nasty things no matter what you do. Now, I want to go to somebody who I've come to... This is by the way, the tweet from Tom Watson. This is what he put out. You know, Tom Watson... He's got him. What does Corbyn think he's going to do? Does Corbyn think the next time something comes out, Tom Watson's going to be okay and say, no, I'll support you on this one? No. Tom Watson's just going to keep stabbing people in the back who supported Jeremy Corbyn. He's just going to keep stabbing them in the back every time to get rid of them. He's a cancer of the fucking party. He's eating it from the inside. Him and his other Labour Friends of Israel and apartheid apologists. That's what I've started calling them, by the way. Apartheid apologists. That's what I think they are. Apartheid apologists. Apologists for apartheid. They always like doing that in the media, don't they? Assad apologists and Saddam apologists. Apartheid apologist Tom Watson. There you go, I said it. The other week, earlier this week, Ruth George. This is how fucking preposterous it is. Ruth George had to apologise for saying this, the independent group that's broken off, may be funded by Israel. She was made to apologise for saying they may be funded by Israel this fucking week. Fast forward to today. Israel lobby funders back breakaway British MPs. she's having to apologise for saying they may be funded by Israel, and it turns out, oh, they're funded by Israel. What a surprise. That shocked us all, that did. And I want to get to somebody who, I haven't got where this came from. This is from Sputnik, and it's from Neil Clark. Sorry, I didn't get the title of it. And he wrote, an article in Sputnik about it, and he basically concurs with what I'm saying here. So I'm going to read this out. He's great, Neil Clark is, and he's a real supporter of Corbyn. And by the way, Momentum blocked Neil Clark today. Momentum. They blocked Neil Clark. Because obviously, Momentum have got a lot to do with this. A lot to do with it. I'm going to get onto a special video about Momentum, I think, because things have been boiling up inside of me about them, and I've got quite a bit of an arsenal to go after them now. So, yeah, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, Momentum. People like me are going to come after you now and really show you to be exactly who you are. But he said this, Neil Clark, the situation in Labour is depressing. No shit, Sherlock. But Corbyn still has a chance if he fights back. And this is the key. It's not over yet. But the fat lady, she's warming her voice up. All right? Be under no... And this is make or break time for Corbyn. Be under no illusions. If he doesn't stand up to this here, if he doesn't stand up to it and he keeps apologising and suspending Chris, if he doesn't reinstate Chris Williamson at the end of this, it's over. Forget it. He will never be Prime Minister, ever. It'll be another 12 years before you've got a chance of a Labour government or anything other than Tory government, and by then, too late, climate change is going to kill us all. This is his last chance. Neil Clark said this. He needs to stop going on the back foot on anti-Semitism, which is basically what Chris Williamson said there, which has involved only a tiny proportion of Labour's vast 500,000 membership, and instead go on the offensive about Israel lobby and their support for a racist state. I'm going to come back to that, all right? Because that's a really good point, and it can be expanded on. He needs to expose the foreign policy agenda of those who are out to destroy him and remind people of the calamitous wars the Blairites supported and the way they greatly increased the terrorist threat to British citizens. Exactly. You hit them on being soft on terror. They start wars and they fund ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That's where you hit them. He needs to end his boycott of lawfully operating Russian media. Absolutely. Get on RT. All of you. Avoid the BBC. Avoid it. They're never going to represent you. Avoid them. Go on media that's actually going to represent you fairly and treat you fairly. People will change. Make a fucking stand. That's what we're begging you. I have been begging it now all week. He's to end his boycott of lawfully operating Russian media. He was a regular guest on RT before he became leader, and start making speeches about Palestine again. He needs to call for an ally in the PLP to challenge the serially disloyal Tom Watson as for deputy leader. Do you think I've got a chance of winning? Somebody needs to get him out. Somebody needs to stand up and get rid of him. He's tearing that party apart. If you don't like Corbyn's policies, Watson, the Tories are on the other side of the aisle. Go sit with them. Because your feelings align with them more than Corbyn. We need to be the broad church. No, we don't. We need to be a populist left-wing movement. And that doesn't include you. Bye-bye. That's what they need to say. He needs to make it clear that if there is a second referendum, he would campaign for a Lexit. Oh, for God, yes, please. Out of respect to the 17.4 million who leave in the first referendum, he has to make it clear that if there is a second referendum, Remain is not on the ballot. That's it. If that Remain is on the ballot, Jeremy Corbyn will never be Prime Minister of this country, ever. I'm hanging my hat on that. He needs to respond to the McCarthyite calls for Socialist Labour MP for Derby North, Chris Williamson, to be suspended. Obviously, this is before he was suspended. This has been suspended now for hosting an event for Jewish Voice of Labour. Yes, by the way, they never point that out. He hosted that event for Jewish Voice of Labour by restoring Chris to the shadow cabinet. Right. People, Jeremy Corbyn, people in the Labour Party, MPs, Labour MPs, stop, please, stop apologising for being right. Stop it right now. You're doing the cause more harm than good, okay? This is something that Tom Watson does, you know, he doesn't realise this, he doesn't care, you know, they don't care. These fake anti-Semitic smears that they've been doing now constantly, that I have catalogued. I've got dozens of instances over the last year. Go back and look. I've watched it. It's pathetic. It's in the land of make-believe now, they are, right? If you cow down to these anti-Semitic smears, guess what they're doing? They're actually doing real victims of anti-Semitism a disservice with these smears. It's making a nothing of them, because if this video was anti-Semitic, then the word has no fucking meaning. Stop apologising for being right when you're right, and stand up. And I want to come back. I said I'd come back to it. I want to come back to this because he was on to something here. Neil was. Go on the offensive about the Israel lobby and their support for a racist state. Exactly. Because the BBC aren't talking about it. Right? They're not. The media aren't talking. The media in this country talking about, you know, the lobby and witch hunt and you know, all the stuff that's going on at the moment with AIPAC and America, etc. No, they're not talking about it. So what you do is you go on the offensive and you attack them for not talking about it. You highlight things from the lobby. You highlight articles from Max Bloom. You go on the attack. Saying sorry and being defensive is not going to win you any support, and it's going to lose you a shit ton of it. Going on the attack, you're not going to win any favours from Tom Watson, even if you do placate them. So why placate them? Go on the offensive. Jeremy, for crying out loud, one of your pillars of your whole manifesto is to radically change the media. And you know more than anybody, just as I do, the media in this country, you know, the country hates them. The country hates the BBC. It's got like a 26% approval rating, the whole media has. The BBC News is probably in single digits. Attack them at every opportunity you can. Because if you attack them, even if it doesn't land, at least people in this country who are on the fence might look at you and go, you know what? At least he's fighting for what's right. Or they may not disagree with him and go, you know what? I admire the fact that he's fighting. I voted for Margaret Thatcher and I never liked her. And the reason is because she was stuck to her guns and she didn't. Do that. That will inspire people. Bowing to the Blairites in your party, you're just going to lose support. I know you are. Because you're losing mine. For more truly honest, independent media like the video you just saw, please subscribe and click the bell below as well so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. If you also like and share and comment on the video as well, that really helps with the algorithm and boosts exposure. And if you can support me, please do so. You can do with any of the avenues on the screen at the moment and below this video. You can support me for as little as $1 a month on Patreon. And every dollar helps. We need your support at the moment. We do not have an operating fourth estate. I'm sure you're aware a functioning media holding power accountable is vital for democracy. At the moment, we haven't got it. So people like me are having to fill their shoes and do the job for them with your support. Thanks very much for your support. Till next time. Peace. Take care.